All right, let's let everybody in. Let's get rolling. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see everybody joining in. Welcome to the Build Back Better Together Economy team meeting, our second team meeting. Glad to have so many folks on this afternoon. Let everybody get situated. We welcome everybody back. Most of you are back for your second meeting. A few folks have joined us in the interim, and if so, welcome to your first meeting of this team. In the time since we were together as a full team, we've had a couple of co-chair meetings to make sure that we're getting well organized and doing good work going forward. Your co-chairs participated in an equity toolkit training with Kendall Boyd, who is Louisville Metro's Chief Equity Officer. Those materials are available if anybody would like to go through them, or anybody would like to participate in an equity toolkit training yourselves. We can certainly arrange for that as well. It was a great discussion, and we have that tool that we can use to apply the equity lens to any of the proposals that we come up with as a group. We've also met as co-chairs to talk about the last meeting we had and look at some of the survey results that were taken online and talk about how we should best break out into groups. And there were probably half a dozen suggestions of how we could break out into groups. And what quickly floated to the top was small business development and support, followed by access to capital and a recognition that those things are very similar. We also talked about how we could break out into groups on things that serve more medium and large size businesses in Louisville's corporate community. We also talked very deliberately, of course, about how we should respond to the path forward for Louisville and the great presentation that we had on that the last time we were together, as well as how things economically are different in different parts of Louisville's geography and how we should respond to that. We very quickly coalesced in our conversations around a recognition of the times that we're in and how much continues to evolve and dynamically change about Louisville circumstances from when we first announced Build Back Better Together in April to the end of May to June, July, and now August. And recognition that we have a pandemic, which unfortunately is raging back with great ferocity, challenging a lot of folks individually and businesses as well. Businesses are worried every day, am I going to be open tomorrow? Am I going to be open come 2021? And as individuals, as businesses, and as a city and country, grappling with how are we going to take the appropriate steps to dismantle systemic racism. So through our rich conversations, we ended up recommending that for now, we break out into two work groups. And that's what you saw in the email from Lena yesterday. And thanks to the vast majority of you for being able to respond and pick one of those. And I'm thrilled that Christina Shadle, Johnetta Roberts, Sadiqa Reynolds, Sean O'Leary are going to be participating in leading the small business support area. And then our second group is our roadmap to equity, focusing more on our medium and large size businesses and how we can help those businesses integrate equity into their work, led by Conrad Daniels, Marshall Bradley, and Sarah DeVasher Wisdom. So that is a quick overview of how we got to these two groups. And if you haven't already told Lena which group you want to go to, when we go into our breakout groups, you'll be left in the room and you can chat with her and she'll tell you, she can assign you from there. So if you want to go ahead and chat to Lena, what breakout group you want to go into, if you haven't already, you can go ahead and do that. At this point, I'm going to turn the virtual mic over to Christina Shadle and Sadiqa Reynolds to give us an overview of what the small business group is going to be focused on. And then after that, we'll hear from Conrad Daniels to talk about the roadmap to equity group in greater detail. Christina, Sadiqa.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Hello, we can.
Okay. All right. Very good. So Christina is going to lead in the breakout groups, but I wanted you to know where we were and what we were thinking so far. We're talking about investments in small businesses obviously with a focus on the path forward document that was presented. I think we all have agreement there. And the 4 areas that we are looking at our technical assistance is the first one, and technical assistance will be everything from really intensive technical assistance for small businesses all the way to mentoring. So just think about TA in that way, technical assistance and mentoring. And then the second is access to capital. So how do these business owners, these potential business owners get access to capital? How do we help with that? The third is customer development. I think we've all, if we know Alice Houston, we've heard her talk about this. Why is it that HJI had to go outside of Louisville to really be able to grow its business? Why does she always say, if I had to rely on Louisvillians to help me grow HJI, we would have been bankrupt years ago? So how do we help with that customer development? And then procurement policies is the last. Procurement policies around government or even for-profit entities. If we think about the money we're spending, why is it so difficult for smaller Black business owners to be able to engage in the procurement process within your company or organization? So again, think of that, whether sometimes when we say procurement, we seem to think just of government. We want to think of both of these, both government and non-governmental entities. And then there's something else that I think you all should talk about, which is, should we be merging this work? You know, we obviously, Sarah is on this call with GLI. Conrad Daniels is on, and you've just heard Mary Ellen again say GLI has a business council to end racism. There's an overarching inclusion strategy. And so how do we make sure that this work is not redundant? None of us has time to spare. I think, you know, I always say in life, you'll make money, you'll spend money, you'll lose money, but time you'll never get back. And so to the extent that we don't have to, you know, waste any time or do things twice, I think we should really think about how to move forward in that way. So those are my thoughts. I just kind of wanted to share those, and then I will turn it over to Christina or to any of you all if you have questions.
The only other piece that I would add with thinking about those focus areas is that our purpose as we go into the groups is really making sure that we're coming up with specific recommendations and starting that work now. But we're looking at specific things that can be done. So this might be plans or work that people haven't been involved in before that just hasn't been moved forward. We need to pick them up and be ready to go quickly on them. To Sadiq's point, if there are things that need to be housed or merged or collapsed, because you all are involved in other groups, we want to be talking about that work. But it's really around how do we get things done in this space very quickly, so that we're responding in real time and recognizing that we're in the middle of a massive economic shift in how we're thinking through things. So we really need to be thinking in ways that are different, that have a greater sense of urgency, might involve taking more risk than what we've been comfortable with in the past. I would just encourage everybody to keep those kind of driving concepts in mind as we go into this work. So thank you.
And also one last thing I would say is just remember that really nothing that we've been doing is good enough. It just hasn't been. And so how do we expand on that? How do we make it better? So anytime you feel like you want to slip into the status quo mode, just think about how inclusive that was. And so how do you change it to make sure we're recognizing others and including others? And I'm going to mute myself now. Thanks.
That was great, and good to challenge us that it's not been good enough and it's not been big enough. Exactly. All right, Conrad, to update us on what we'll be doing in the roadmap to equity.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Good afternoon. I'm Conrad Daniels, president of HJI Supply Chain Solutions. Good to see everyone, see a lot of friends on here. First of all, thank you for your participation, commitment, and input, to the feedback that we're trying to provide. During the last co-chair meeting, we had a great discussion about how best to break down the 6 different work group proposals. And we realized, to what a lot of people have been saying on here, including Sadiq, was, some of the other strategic initiatives are already in place, with GLI, One West, Louisville Urban League, et cetera, and they all overlapped. So we thought it best, we wanted to streamline the work of the Build Back Better Together economy focus So with that said, we took these 6 and streamlined them into 2. One work group being investments in small business with a focus on a path forward to Louisville that Sadiqa and Christina just went over. And the other is a roadmap to equity for corporate Louisville. So we felt like corporate Louisville should be the focus on equity, grounded responses, and can make the most impact. So I'm looking forward to co-chairing this along with Mike Davis with APRIS and Marshall Bradley with the Lincoln Foundation and Sarah Davishire Wisdom with GLI. Together with you all, we will develop a roadmap that mid-large size businesses can follow to intentionally address equity now. We already know it will take time. However, we have to start now. And we can't, move fast enough, to what Sadiq was saying. And our mid-large majority corporations must have leadership courageous enough to acknowledge we need to do better and lead with transparency of where we are now, with the understanding that most majority corporations are failing. And that's absolutely okay. Again, we can't fix what we can't confront. So with transparency comes trust, and with both transparency and trust comes accountability, which is what we all want from ourselves and our peers. So with that, I look forward to the conversation, the planning for action, and I'll see some of you all in the breakout sessions.
All right, great introductions. I think, Lena, now you push the magic button and we will end up in our breakout rooms. And if you end up in the wrong place or end up nowhere, just chat with Lena and she'll get you assigned. And let's continue the conversation in our smaller groups, and we'll be back here in about 45 minutes. Thank you all.
Hi, Jack. Can you hear me? Sorry, you're probably muted, but I'm chatting you on the side. You should be able to join your breakout session. Now you're unmuted, Jack. Did something pop up for you to join a breakout session? No? It might be that the thing that pops up for you to join the breakout session was just covered up and hidden, therefore. It's just a little tiny box that pops up to offer for you to join the breakout session. All right, let me try to put you back in the waiting room, and then I'll bring you back in the meeting, and we'll try it again from zero. Just 1 second.
All right, it looks like we all made it back through the Zoom portal, back to the main meeting here. Welcome back. We had a great meeting over in the Roadmap to Equity, and I hear there was great discussion in small business as well. So let's flip this right now. And Conrad, would you be willing to start our debrief here for our team? We'll spend a few minutes on that and then hear from the small business team on how their discussion went.
Sure. Yeah. I want to just thank again all those that participated in that convening that we just had. A lot of spirited, meaningful, heartfelt conversations about the opportunity that we have ahead. So thank you for that. Mary Ellen, you can jump in, but you know, a couple of things that I was writing down as we were discussing is one of the things that really came out was taking all of these different directories of MBEs, centralizing them together and putting it together in a website directory or something that we can then give access to all of the small, medium, major corporations, their procurement teams. So I think there's quite a bit out there. However, how do we figure out a way from the city standpoint to centralize and give people access that's readily and retrievable to directories of MBEs? I think that came out loud and clear. You know, another thing that came out was a convening of medium to major corporate leadership, CEOs, presidents, chief procurement officers, getting them all together, convening and having a couple of things. One, educational conversations about a perspective through history that we all have not been privy to. And that is why the racial wealth gap is where it is right now. You know, so a historical context to why this work is important, and why, you know, equity and opportunity is at the forefront. But then also to talk about how can we be like a Detroit? You know, how can we scale up other businesses? Can we mandate a certain spend of, you know, MBE, women-owned, other disadvantaged businesses, but mandate tier 1 spend, and more importantly, when there isn't an MBE tier 1 that's scalable enough to do it, to mandate tier 2 spend. And more importantly, how do we hold them accountable? With construction sites, you know, we heard a lot about construction and how once it gets to a certain level, hey, all they can say is we tried. You know, however, how can we turn that try into, well, it doesn't move forward until we hold them accountable and say the project does not move forward until the mandate is met. I don't know how we change that framework and that mindset. Something else that came out was, you know, just making our boards, our leadership, our managers representative of the city MSA. You know, starting with, I mean, everyone in here can probably look at their own company and say, yeah, we're pretty good, or no, we're not even tracking it. You know, so I don't, it's one, there has to be a level of transparency of where we are and where we need to be. That's going to get trust, and then we can work on accountability. I may have missed some things, Mary Ellen, you might have to cover it.
That is a great recap. I had made very similar lists to distilling it to, we need some education, we need training, we need lists and toolkits and resources, simply summarized, and collaboration across that. So I think it was a really, really good discussion. We'll have some time for Q&A after we hear from the next group. So there may be some questions and such. So hold those close. And Christina and others from the small business group, how did it go?
I think we had a really good conversation, and I think we ended up in a more authentic place, honestly, in a better place than even where I had sort of thought that we would go. So what we really landed on is understanding that there are certain support systems that are out there, organizations that are helping in the small business development space. Again, it's sort of a range of places, you know, anybody from, you know, your very first idea all the way to people who are looking to scale. But we've had a historic disconnect, right, that has existed in this community. And so really what we're thinking is that there's a need to do kind of an inventory of what's out there, and then really take those resources and connect with particularly Black-owned businesses and Black-serving business organizations to help understand where there have been places where there has been a disconnect. Because as we've said, if we roll out one more program or one more initiative, but then there isn't trust built or there aren't relationships built, we're going to find ourselves back in the same places that we've been before. And particularly when you're, you know, on the backdrop of a pandemic and everything else that's going on now. So we're really looking to say, how do we kind of gather some of those resources, but then bring them to individuals in the Black business community to help understand kind of what has worked, what hasn't, where the changes need to exist. Tanika with the Buy Black Lou initiative has offered to particularly help us in terms of being able to marshal the experience of the several hundred Black-owned businesses that they have aggregated on that site as a place. And ultimately, we're looking to shift the paradigm to, you know, not so much what do organizations that look like or are led by people who look like me, but what does it look like for Black individuals and Black business organizations? What would they like to see, and how do we have the white community come behind that? So we're really looking to have that roadmap developed by individuals who have been least connected and least effectively reached, if we just take a look at our outcomes. So, and I'll ask Tanika, especially since I invoked your name, if you would want to add anything else to that, and then anybody else from the group who would want to add on. But that's kind of an immediate next step for us, is to sort of switch that paradigm. I don't know if...
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute.
I don't know if we're still.
No, I
is
think you
Tanika
did.
still there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
she
here.
is. Go ahead, Tanika. Yeah.
I think you summed it up pretty good, Christina. Just, you know, recognizing that there are Black-led, Black-owned organizations out here that's already doing the work, that's underfunded and could use the support. And, you know, of course, the capital. So just being able to merge, and if we're talking about, you know, supporting Black-owned businesses, allowing Black-owned organizations, Black leaders, Black businesses to be the face of that, and having, you know, our white friends, allies, counterparts, whatever you want to call it, to come and support and, you know, come and join with us instead of being the actual face of it.
Yeah, I think that's great. So yeah, we have some pretty clear next steps, and we have a handful of folks who have volunteered to help us with kind of this inventorying and then matching that up with other supports inside of the Black business community, so that we can really allow that process to develop our strategy going forward.
There's a great overlap here between two things that both got a lot of discussion in each of these two work groups, and that is, who are the Black-owned businesses and how do I find them? Where are the lists, and how can I find, you know, this type of business or that type of business? And right now we have several different organizational lists, and Tanika, I'm really thrilled that you're on here today. And I know we've had several conversations, Rebecca Fleischaker on the economic development team, talking about how we can coalesce some of this. And this has got to be one of the top takeaways for us. We've got to make it easier for all businesses to connect with Black-owned businesses. It's a huge part of our conversation in our work group.
Well, this is Cassie. I just want to say that if that work is going to be collective, like, y'all should pay Tanika for her list, or pay Lace for the work that we're doing to help cooperatives. Like, it's not just one thing to partner, like pay people for the resources and for the work that they've already done.
That's right.
Amen.
Absolutely. Everything of value should have a dollar assigned. All right, we are into a Q&A section here of our agenda. I know we've got some good stuff going on in the chat room over here. I have to tell you, when we get back into the world of meeting in person, I'm actually going to miss the chat room. There's so much richness that comes into discussions on the sidebar here, so make sure you're paying attention to that. But let's open it up. Questions in chat room, or just unmute and throw into the conversation. And now everyone is really loving being on mute. I'm going to try to kind of recap some things. So I think immediately we need to pull off into a subgroup to work on these inventorying and the list. That's a really top item. And then on the education and training side of this, it sounds like another area where we'll pull off into a group and work on that, and an accountability structure that Conrad was talking about. The small business team obviously has some pull off work as well. Probably what we'll do next is let Christina and the other leaders in the small business team decide when they want to have a separate meeting to kind of dig down deeper, and then Conrad and others, Mike and Marshall, on the roadmap to equity side, think about how we want to pull off into smaller groups. So be on the lookout for emails suggesting when there might be meetings or other things to contribute. And of course, please keep the conversation going on email and other formats. You don't have to wait for another meeting to throw in a great idea. But I'm really excited about the things that have come out of today, and also not surprised, but thrilled to see how much overlap there is. Like when we started dividing up into these two groups, we talked a lot about how it was pretty much a Venn diagram overlapping between these two work group ideas, and the things down the middle that would come out of them that would be mutually reinforcing to the ideas. So unless we've got somebody popping in with a question here, then I'm going to kind of set a marker out there for us thinking ahead. There is a larger meeting of the Build Back Better Together platform, the steering committee plus all the co-chairs, slated for August 21st. Hopefully that date will hold. And of course, that'll be a public open meeting. You'll be able to watch and participate like this on the side with questions. And that's where all 7 teams will be presenting on the status of their work. And so the good work that we've done here today and we'll do between now and the 21st will be what the co-chairs will be reporting out on that date, and we'll see what we can get done between now and then. So think about that and mark that on your calendars. I'm not 100% sure of the time, but I'm pretty sure it's the morning of the 21st. Lena can help send that out later. All right, I did get one question here on the side from Jack Will. How difficult will it be to gather corporate leadership together on this topic? You know, I think we've got a real gift with GLI having their group meeting now. And Conrad, Sarah, Devesha Wisdom, did y'all want to throw in on that that point?
Sure, Conrad, unless you want to comment, I'll go ahead and take the first opportunity here. We have just passed a strategic plan 2 weeks ago, and that includes several objectives, including certain connections between minority-owned companies and larger corporations to do business, also convening corporations and corporate leadership a certain number of times each year over the next 5 years to continue this conversation on how to make talent feel welcome, and that includes both Black and other types of minority talent as well, immigrants, Hispanic, and then also we have another position that we're hiring for that is based on technical assistance in helping minority-owned companies to raise capital, do business plans, and again, still make those connections with large corporations. So I do see a lot of overlap here, and my hope is that we can work together and do this instead of working parallel to one another.
I think there'll be real power in that as we develop the kind of framework here that we're talking about, and having these efforts go in GLI and other places where we can really bring people together to get behind what we want to recommend from this effort.
Mary Ellen, I had one other thing to you. The first meeting I asked, and I ask again in a small group, when are you going to hire any more Black people to work in your department? You have to set the example.
No, it's a great question, Cass. I had this question with the Path Forward group last week, and unfortunately right now the Economic Development Department does not look like the community that we serve, and that's a problem. We had additional African-American staff members here. Unfortunately, we suffered significant budget cuts last year. That impacted that number. Fortunately, all of those wonderful individuals found new roles either inside Metro government or without. And then we've been in a hiring freeze that's starting to change. And so hopefully now when we can do some hiring with our budget opening up, fingers crossed that we can help rectify that. So I'm a firm believer the organization at all levels should represent the community that it serves.
And it was a lot Blacker before you came.
Not sure if that statistic is true or not. Thank you. I'll look into that. All right, looking over here in the chat room, we've got a question. There are different organizations. So Tanika and others, if you look over in the chat room, there is, Tanika's group is by Black Lou, and the Noir Chamber of Commerce is a different group. Tanika or anyone else want to talk a little bit more about your organization, what it does?
Sure, for us, by Black Lou, as I said before, we have roughly 31,000 members. We do have a Black-owned business directory. You can see it on bybblacklou.com. We have thousands of views per week. I think our highest was 2,000 app views in one day. We also have e-learning courses, which our first e-learning course, we garnered 1.8 thousand views, participants for that one. We have over 250 Black-owned businesses listed inside the directory. We've also given out over 1,000 free masks for COVID, and all of this is with a zero budget, FYI. To the community members. So you can check us out on bybblacklou.com. If you're on Facebook, feel free to join our group and you'll see some of the awesome things that we have going on. By Black Lou is on Facebook, and we also have a nonprofit arm, which is the Black Business Association, which is where we will provide e-courses and resources, tools, and all of the things that a lot of our businesses have expressed that they need to plan, launch, grow, and sustain their businesses. So check us out.
Thank you. That's a great commercial, and it's a great platform. I think it's a great one for us to build upon. All right, we're down in the last few minutes of the time we had together today. I think we'll start to wind down here, and this has been a great discussion in the full group and in the two work groups. Lots of additional resources shared in those work groups and over in the chat room today. So we'll get this information posted online very quickly so that folks can have access to all those resources. So Lena, if you haven't already, please save that chat so that we can make sure we capture all of the resources that were put out there. And please keep an eye over there. We've got some other great comments coming in. And so it's the richness of this discussion. Even when we can't be together in person, we're making the best of this format. All right, folks, we will close out for today. I want to thank the co-chairs for their extra work in between meetings and getting us ready for a great, successful meeting today, preparing resources. We'll take our conversations offline to get some things rolling. And then, like I said, look for the next email for a work group meeting for each of the two separate meetings. And do keep in touch with questions. And thank you guys for everything you're doing. I know it's a difficult time for everybody, whether you're in business or you're unemployed or you're employed and trying to figure out how to stay employed and trying to figure out where the next contract and the next business is coming from. Everybody's dealing with a lot right now. And so we are thrilled that everyone has taken the time to be here, your time and your talent to participate in this together. Hope everybody has a great week, and let's keep in touch. Thanks. Bye-bye.